Before I tell you what happened to me, I want you to think about this and answer it at the end for real. If you saw a cop slam somebody to the ground in front of their own house for nothing but attitude, would you step in or would you look away and tell yourself it's not your business? Be honest with yourself on that, because that question decides how this story goes. My name is Aaron Blake, and in Silver Ridge, a quiet little town full of perfect lawns and watchful eyes, I got introduced to the way things really work, the way power moves when it thinks nobody's going to check it. And the only reason you're even hearing me now is because a camera was rolling across the street when that cop pushed me into the concrete. Yeah, that happened, and I'm still here to talk about it. I had just bought a house on Maple Crest Drive, first real place that wasn't just a flip or a rental. This one was mine, my name on the deed, my books on the shelves, my mother's picture on the mantle. And I'm not going to lie to you, I was proud. That kind of quiet, proud, you only get if you know how many nights you stayed awake to get there. You know what I mean? It was a Saturday morning, sun out, movers carrying in this big carved walnut bookcase I love. And I was standing on the sidewalk giving them room to angle it through the door so they wouldn't crack the edge cream silk shirt dress shoes. I don't do the basketball shorts and slides look when I'm handling my own stuff, that's just not me. Sidewalk is basically clear, no one is being blocked, no one is in danger, nobody's yelling, nobody's drunk in the yard, none of that. And then I see this police cruiser roll up slow like a shark circling meat. No lights, no siren, just attitude. He stops a little crooked like he wants the tires to squeal so everybody on the block knows he's here, and he gets out like he already owns the scene, like we're in his way, and he just showed up to fix a problem. Later I learned his name is Officer Trent Keller, but at that moment he didn't even say hello. First thing out of his mouth was, "Hey, you, move this junk off the sidewalk, now." Loud on purpose, like I'm a delivery boy who wandered into a gated community without permission. My movers froze mid-lift, and I'm staring at him thinking, all right, maybe he's just one of those guys who wakes up mad. I say calm. "Good morning, officer. We're just getting this one piece through the doorway. We'll be clear in a minute." He gives me this smile that isn't a smile, more like he wants me to know he's already irritated, and he says, "Did I ask you for excuses?" I said, "Clear the walkway. You holding a parade out here? Or you just don't understand English?" And I'm standing there thinking, oh, it's one of those, you ever feel that where the conversation is not about what you're doing, it's about whether you're allowed to stand there like you're equal, because in his face that's what it was. And I can feel eyes from porches, people with their coffee pretending they're not looking, and I know how this game goes. I know exactly how fast this can turn into. He was acting aggressive. If I take one wrong step, so I keep my hands visible, keep my voice low, and I say, "Officer Keller, I own this house. I'm moving in. We're not blocking traffic." He leans in on me like he's about to whisper in church and says, "You think I care what you own? You think money makes you special out here? Silver Ridge has standards. I don't want to see this circus on my sidewalk again." Circus. That's what he called my movers carrying my bookcase into my house, and when I tell you I felt something get tight in me, I don't mean rage. Not yet, I mean that sting, that familiar. You're not supposed to be here. Sting, that little voice that goes, "Oh, I see the role you wrote for me already." So I tell him, still calm, "Sir, there's no need for disrespect." That one sentence, that one little line lit him up like gasoline on coals. He laughed. Not a real laugh, more like a short, ugly bark. And he said, "You haven't seen disrespect yet." And then before I could even take a step back, he did it. He didn't guide me back with his hand. He didn't ask me to move. He dropped his shoulder and drove straight into my chest. Full body weight, like I was a blocking sled, and I got knocked backward off balance. My heel caught on the edge of the grass, and I hit the concrete hard enough that I saw this burst of white in my vision and tasted metal in my mouth. My elbow exploded with pain trying to catch my fall. Gravel tore my shirt sleeve, and it went quiet for half a second. Real quiet, you know, the kind where everybody's heart stops at the same time. And then I heard it, that little gasp from across the street. This older woman watering her flowers with big gardening gloves, hand over her mouth like she doesn't believe what she just saw. And one of my movers whispering, "Oh my God," under his breath. I'm on the ground in front of my own house, and he's standing over me like he just saved the neighborhood from me. He looked down at me with this little smirk and said, "That's for obstructing a public walkway and disrespecting an officer," like he was delivering a lesson and I was supposed to be grateful for the education. Then, and this part right here made my stomach go cold, he grabbed his radio and slipped right into performance mode like he'd rehearsed it in the mirror. "Unit 12, I have a hostile male subject at 2814 Maple Crest. Non-compliant. Possible resisting. Request supervisor to sign off on arrest." You hear that language, right? Hostile male subject. That's how I became a suspect that fast. One shove and a lie, and now I'm the threat. I'm hostile, and he's building his case in real time. He puts his hand on his gun and says to me calm like he's done this 100 times. Don't move. And I'm telling you, that was the moment everything changed in my head, because right then I realized two things at the same time. First, this man was not trying to keep order. He was trying to break me in front of an audience so I would learn the rules. And second, if I even breathed wrong, he was going to make sure I left my own driveway in cuffs or worse, and then he'd go home and eat dinner, like it was nothing. You know what I mean? He really thought nobody could challenge his version of reality. And you know what's messed up? Usually he's right. Took about 10 minutes for his supervisor to show up, even though it felt like a whole hour, and I just stood there and brushed dirt off my shirt, holding my elbow, not running, not yelling, not giving him anything he could twist into. He was escalating, in his paperwork later, just looking at him and letting him see I was memorizing his face because I was. Then this black SUV rolls up, not a regular squad car. And when the door opened, my stomach just dropped because stepping out wasn't some tired sergeant looking to keep the peace. It was Chief Daniel Blake, the police chief for Ridge Valley PD, also known as my brother. Now before you think, oh, that must have made you feel safe, let me explain something. My brother is not dirty, he's not that. But he's spent his whole adult life inside that system, and he's learned to live with things I refuse to live with. He's the guy who says, let me handle it. And when he says handle it, what he usually means is, let me make sure it doesn't blow up in public. So when I saw his face, I felt this little flash of relief, like, okay, I'm protected. Followed immediately by anger, like, no, you don't get to walk up and pretend everything's fine. You get to look at what your badge let happen to me. He does that. Cop scan takes in the scene, the movers, the bookcase on the grass, me with dirt on my shirt and blood on my palm. Keller standing there with his chest out like he's waiting on a medal. And then he sees my face and just stops. Aaron, he says real quiet, and you could feel the whole street shift. Like, wait, why is the chief calling the hostile male subject by his first name? Keller's head snapped toward him like, oh. I looked my brother right in the eye and I said, clear enough for everybody to hear. Your officer rolled up on me in front of my house, called my belongings a circus, told me I don't meet this neighborhood's standards, and shoved me into the sidewalk because I didn't say yes, sir, fast enough. Then he got on the radio and lied and called me hostile. I said it calm like a statement for the record because trust me, at that point, everything is on the record. My brother turns to Keller and says, is that true? And Trent Keller, with the confidence of somebody who's had his version believed his whole career, goes, Chief, the subject refused a lawful order, became verbally aggressive, and attempted to square up on me. I used minimal force to ensure compliance. That phrase right there, minimal force, you have no idea how many times that same sentence has been typed in reports to make violence sound like paperwork. I laughed, I couldn't help it. It just came out because he was saying it like we weren't all standing right there watching him lie with a straight face. My brother's jaw clenched. I saw it. He knew Keller was lying because he knows me. He also knew that every other cop in that building was going to back Keller, and the union was going to back Keller, and the city council was going to back Keller. And if he went against Keller in public, this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about his career burning down and his whole department turning on him. And what did he do with all that? Did he cuff Keller on the spot? Did he say you're done, badge off, turn around, hands behind your back? Did he make a statement right there in the sunshine that this department doesn't put hands on people for existing in a nice zip code? No. He took Keller's gun, told him, you're on desk duty, effective immediately, turn in your weapon, internal will investigate. And that was it, desk duty. That's what I got for getting slammed into the ground in front of my own house, a promise of an internal review and a timeout. I looked at him and I said, that's it. He assaults me on my property in broad daylight and you give him a chair job. My brother pulled me aside, voice low, all quiet urgency. Aaron, don't make this worse, let me handle it. I said, no, we're not doing that anymore. I'm done letting you handle things in rooms where nobody can see. And that right there was the second the lines got drawn. Because I realized something about him in that moment too, and I'm not saying this to drag him, I'm saying it because it's the truth. He wasn't just scared of what would happen if he went after his own officer. He was scared of what would happen if he stopped playing the game where the department protects itself first and deals with the truth later if it has to. And that game, that little quiet agreement that almost cost me everything. You want to know how fast the machine moves? Watch this part. By lunchtime, there was already a version of the story floating around the department that I had charged at Keller, that I was screaming in his face, but that I refused to comply. And Keller's buddy officer Jace Nolan had already filed supporting notes saying he witnessed the whole thing, even though he didn't show up until after my brother was already on scene. That's how it works. They don't just hit you and walk away, they build a paper trail. And if it's two cops saying the same lie that becomes the official truth, and now you're aggressive forever and he's a decorated officer who used minimal force, then it spread to the public because of course it did. Some blog that lives to post little "support our heroes" pieces ran this headline. Wealthy newcomer attacks officer in Silver Ridge. Chief interferes to protect brother. So now I'm not a homeowner moving in, I'm an entitled outsider with an attitude, and my brother's not a chief who hesitated. He's corrupt. He's abusing power to protect me from the consequences of my imaginary assault. It was fast, it was loud, and it was on purpose because if you control the first version, you control how people react when the truth finally shows up. Cars started slowing down when they passed my house. Neighbors I'd waved at in the morning wouldn't make eye contact by the afternoon. Reporters started calling my phone, and I'm sitting there thinking, wow, I went from putting a bookshelf in my living room to being a threat to public safety in under 3 hours. And then here's where the whole story turns, and it's not because the system suddenly grew a conscience, it's because regular people decided they were done being scared. My across-the-street neighbor, Miss Halverson, little lady in her 70s with floral gloves and a sun hat, the same woman who gasped when I hit the sidewalk, knocks on my door that night like she's already made up her mind. She doesn't ask if she can come in, she just walks in and sits down like a grandmother about to fix something, and she says, "What that officer did to you was a disgrace. I'm tired of being afraid of him in my own neighborhood." Then she tells me something I did not know, but I will be grateful for until I die. She has cameras. Not just cheap cameras either. I'm talking full clear angle, full audio installed by her grandson who works tech. She pulls it up on her little monitor in her den and we watch it together. And when I tell you that video was like the sun coming up, I'm not exaggerating. You can see Keller's cruiser roll up, you can hear him call my belongings a circus. You can hear me being calm, you can see me with my hands down just standing, and then you can see him drop his shoulder and slam me, and you can hear the impact when I hit the concrete, and then you can hear him call me hostile on the radio like nothing we just watched even happened. It's all there, not just the shove, the whole tone, the way he talked to me like I was trash in his street, the way I tried to de-escalate, the way he escalated anyway because he wanted to. I just sat there staring at that screen with my jaw clenched, and I felt something change in me. The shaking in my chest calmed down. Everything got sharp and focused, like, all right, now we're not begging anybody to believe us. Now we're walking in with proof. She looks at me and says, "Will this help?" And I told her, "Miss Halverson, this doesn't just help, this ends it." Next piece of this puzzle was inside the department. Officer Lena Ruiz Latina, been on the force 3 years, still believes in what that badge is supposed to mean. Not what guys like Keller turned it into. Calls my brother from a burner phone because she's scared to be seen talking to him, voice shaking, and she says Chief Keller and Nolan were laughing in the locker room while they wrote up the report. I heard them making it up. I heard them add lines about him threatening. I heard them practice the phrases "minimal force feared for my safety," "non-compliant," "they're lying and they're about to swear to it." Do you get how wild that is? This woman was literally risking her career to say out loud, "Your guys are straight up fabricating reality. And they're comfortable doing it because they always get away with it." So now we've got me, the person who got slammed, we've got an eyewitness neighbor, we've got inside confirmation that the story on paper is fake. And we have the video, which is the nuke. At that point I called a lawyer, her name is Dana Cole, and Dana is one of those people who talks like a surgeon, calm, precise, not here to make speeches, here to cut. We sit in her office, me, her Lena, and Miss Halverson, with her little purse like she's smuggling state secrets. And Dana watches the video and then looks at me and says, "So here's what we have. Assault, civil rights violation, conspiracy to commit perjury, official misconduct, false reporting. This isn't going to be handled quietly. This is going to be loud." I said, "Great, post the video online right now. Let everybody see." And Dana shook her head and smiled a little like she's been waiting for me to say that so she could tell me no. "Not yet." She said, "We let them lie first. We let them lock in their version under oath. And then when they're sure they're safe, we drop the tape and let their own words bury them." I sat back, and I swear to you I felt this wave of something I hadn't felt all day, control. Because for the first time since my back hit that pavement, I wasn't reacting anymore. We were building something. We brought my brother in that night. Not Chief Blake, not the press conference version of him, just Dan, my brother. And when he walked in, he tried to start with, "If this is about pressuring me, I can't." And Dana didn't even let him finish. She just spun the laptop around and hit play. And I sat there and watched my big brother watch me. His little brother get shoved to the ground on camera by one of his own officers. while that same officer stood over me and lied, and I watched his face just fall apart. He whispered, "Oh my God," like it physically hurt to see it. Then I told him straight, "You didn't want to believe me. You wanted to handle it internally. This is what internal looks like. This is what your badge let walk around this neighborhood like it owns people." Dana laid out the rest for him. All the prior complaints on Keller from mostly black and brown residents, all marked not sustained, because guess what? The partner always backed the story. Lena ready to swear under oath that they cooked the report. The fact that we already copied the footage to a secure drive with instructions that if anything happened to me or Lena or Miss Halverson, that video goes to every reporter in the state. Then I said the thing I knew would force him to pick a side, and yeah, it was cold, but I meant every word. I told him, "You can stay being their chief or you can show up as my brother, but you don't get to be both anymore." You could actually see it land in him like a punch he wasn't expecting. And after a long minute, he just nodded and said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do." The next morning, Internal Affairs calls Keller in for what he thinks is just routine, a statement of formality box check stuff. He shows up cocky with Nolan sitting there and the union rep posted up acting bored like this is wasting his time. And they sit Keller at a table in a gray little interview room with a camera in the corner and a screen on the wall and say, "Walk us through exactly what happened on Maple Crest." And Trent Keller, God bless his confidence, lies like he's auditioning, real smooth, real steady, same script. The subject refused a lawful order, became loud and aggressive, stepped into my space in a threatening way. I feared for my safety. I used a trained control technique. Officer Nolan was present and witnessed the entire interaction. And the investigators just sit there nodding, letting him hang himself, asking follow-ups like, "So you feared for your safety, and so the suspect moved toward you," just getting him to repeat it on camera where it counts. After he's done digging, after he's all comfortable in his story, the lead investigator slides a folder forward and says, real calm, "Officer Keller, we have a statement from a neighbor across the street that says, Mr. Blake was calm and you were the only aggressor. We also have an internal report from an officer who says she overheard you and Officer Nolan fabricating this account in the locker room. Do you wish to amend your statement?" Keller scoffs. Nolan rolls his eyes. Union rep leans forward and goes, "This is harassment. My officer has already answered. Unless you've got something concrete, we're done." And that's when the screen on the wall turns on. No speech, no warning, no build-up, just the video playing in full color and full audio. Keller watching Keller. Keller watching himself call my stuff a circus. Keller watching himself tell me Silver Ridge has standards. Keller watching himself slam me into the pavement while I'm literally standing there with my hands down. Keller listening to himself get on the radio and call me hostile after I'm already on the ground. And I'm telling you, the blood drained out of that man's face so fast you could feel the temperature in that room drop. Nolan went dead quiet. The union rep had his mouth open and nothing came out. When it ended, the investigator didn't yell, he didn't posture. He just slid a pair of cuffs across the table and said, "Officer Trent Keller, you're under arrest for assault, filing a false police report, and perjury. You have the right to remain silent." And that man, Mr. Silver Ridge Standards, just stared at those cuffs like he had never seen handcuffs from that angle in his life. Nolan folded instantly. "I'll cooperate. I'll tell you everything. I don't want to go down for this." And right there, that was it. That was the crack in the wall. Because once that video went into evidence, my brother, and let's be real here, it was him, made sure it found its way to the press. And the second the footage hit the public, the whole story flipped in under a day. That blog that called me an aggressive outsider had to post a retraction. The comments that were calling me entitled went real quiet. The union stopped talking about how Keller was a hero under attack and started talking about isolated incidents, which is union code for, "We're not dying on this hill." The neighbors on Maple Crest suddenly remembered how to wave again when I got the mail. Funny how that works. Keller got charged. Nolan got suspended and gave up his part in the lie to save himself. Internal reopened old complaints. Lena is no longer some anonymous voice, she's protected now. And my brother, who at first was just trying not to get burned, actually started tearing into his own department for real, bringing in outside review, changing how complaints are flagged, pulling people off the street who should have been gone years ago. And no, it's not fixed, it's not magic. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, like this is the movie ending where everybody hugs and racism retires. That's not real life. What's real is pressure. What's real is sunlight. What's real is having proof you can't bury, and people willing to say, "No, I'm not looking away this time." Couple days after all that, I'm on my porch while they finally move that bookcase into the living room where it should have been in the first place, and Miss Halverson walks over with this warm apple pie like something out of a Midwestern commercial. And she goes, "Housewarming gift. And a thank you. You made our street safer." And I just started laughing like, "Ma'am, you are the reason I'm not sitting in a cell right now. I should be over there mowing your lawn for the rest of the year." And she looks me dead in the eye and says, "You stood back up in front of him, that matters." And I felt something settle in me, something like peace, like this neighborhood that was supposed to reject me had to swallow the truth instead and live with it. So I'm going to end this by asking you the same thing I asked up top, and I want you to answer in the comments because somebody else is going to read what you write, and maybe it'll help them next time they're standing on a sidewalk with somebody in their face, right? Have you ever watched something that you knew wasn't right and felt that knot in your throat, that fear that if you speak up, it'll land on you next, like you could be the one on the ground next time? Would you pull out your phone and film? Would you step in? Would you tell the truth if the whole block decided to hate you for it? Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me what you think justice really looks like in real life, not in speeches, and hit subscribe. If you believe sunlight and people who refuse to shut up are still the only reason any of this ever changes.